Hey there, Peter Waitzman here, founder of Expedition Money, and I'm a military personal financial counselor. Today, we're talking about money, specifically what you can actually expect to earn in this role, what the career progression looks like, and why there's essentially a ceiling on how much you can make as a frontline counselor. All right, let's talk about compensation and career path for military personal financial counselor positions. Because if you're considering this a career, you need to know what the financial reality actually looks like. I've seen some of these roles listed for as low as $40,000 per year. From what I can tell from job postings and talking to other PFCs and looking at contractor salary data, they generally hire in the range from about $40,000 to $85,000 a year. That $85,000, that seems to be the hard maximum for a frontline financial counselor position, depending on your experience, what you bring to the table, maybe how big the facility is, maybe if you have a military background, or how much need they have for the role. So let me break down what I think determines where you fall in that range. At smaller facilities that don't have as many service members, say maybe you're at a National Guard armory with a couple hundred guardsmen, maybe you've got a few secondary locations, maybe you're in a rural area, maybe there aren't a lot of locations. Pay is probably going to likely be on the lower end, think $40,000 to $55,000 range. Or if you're relatively new to this industry, or you're a new AFC, or just kind of beginning in your career path, I think this range is probably appropriate. In more urban areas, where you might have 15 to 20 secondary sites, you're covering a larger geographic area and you're serving thousands of service members with a big base under your purview, you're probably closer to that $65,000 to $85,000 range. Location matters too. If you're in a high cost of living area, San Diego, DC, anywhere expensive, you might see slightly higher pay to account for that. But remember, these are contractor positions, not government GS scale jobs with automatic locality adjustments. It varies by company. Now, I want to be really clear about something. I haven't personally run into anyone who makes more than $85,000 as a frontline PFC. They may exist, they may be out there, maybe people are lying to me. But if you're watching this and you do make more than that $85,000 a year, I would genuinely love to hear about it in the comments, so please hit me up, because that would be new information for me. But here's why I think there's a ceiling at or around $85,000. Once you get into that level, you're really at the supervisor level. That's where you start seeing salaries around $90,000, maybe going up to $100,000 or $110,000 or $115,000. And they're not generally going to have counselors making more than supervisors. That wouldn't make sense from an organizational structure standpoint. So the supervisor's salary kind of creates a natural cap on counselor pay. Speaking of supervisors, let's talk about career progression, because there is a path upward. It's just pretty limited. You start as a personal financial counselor, a PFC. That's the frontline role. You're at one installation, maybe covering some satellite locations, doing some direct counseling with service members. The next level up is personal financial manager, or PFM. Some companies might call this role personal financial supervisor, PFS. The titles vary by contractor, but the function is similar. A PFM or PFS manages counselors at multiple bases. They work directly with the frontline counselors on things like onboarding, training, coaching, system setup, time cards, strategies for base engagement, marketing to command leadership, maximizing your value for the personnel you serve. This level is typically in the $80,000 to $100,000 range from what I've seen. Then above that, you've got regional supervisors who oversee larger areas, all the bases in a region, all the managers, all the counselors. They're responsible for relationships with base leadership, tracking metrics across the entire region, reporting efficacy up to the contractor's leadership. I don't have firsthand knowledge of that level since I'm a frontline counselor, but from what I understand, those positions are probably in the $90,000 to $115,000 range, maybe higher depending on the scope. Companies seem to promote from within for these supervisory roles. So you'd start as a frontline counselor and work your way up. And here's something I've noticed. Many people in supervisory positions have military experience. Often they're retirees from branches like the Air Force, Army, Navy. Sometimes they're Guard or Reserve members who've transitioned to civilian contractor work. Military experience is not required to become a supervisor, but it definitely helps. It builds credibility with the client, the military installation leadership, and it shows you understand the culture because you've lived it. And that matters when you're managing relationships with colonels and command sergeants major. I don't have military experience myself. I've never served. What I've relied on is years of supporting the military community through counseling, working with military clients, understanding their unique accounts like TSP and blended retirement system, understanding their challenges like deployments and PCS moves, and I was assigned to a National Guard base, which I think is actually easier for someone without a full-time military background. Here's why. Guardsmen are often full-time civilians with guard duty 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. Some get activated for longer periods, but the baseline is part-time military service. That means their finances often resemble traditional civilian counseling more closely. The guard income is part-time or side income on top of their civilian job. They're dealing with civilian budgets, civilian debt, civilian financial challenges, plus the unique military component. Some of the guardsmen I work with have prior full-time service in other branches. They might be Army veterans who joined the Guard, or they're still serving but transitioned from active duty. So there is that military culture and experience present. But overall, working with the Guard feels more accessible for someone like me who hasn't personally served but has a strong financial counseling background. Here's the honest truth. If you're looking for a career with a lot of upward mobility, this probably isn't the best fit. There is opportunity to move up PFC to PFM to regional supervisor. It exists, but it's limited. There are way more frontline counselor positions than there are manager positions, and way more manager positions than regional supervisor positions. So you're competing with a lot of people, many of whom have military backgrounds that give them an edge for a relatively small number of advancement opportunities. One thing that you're going to find out a little later, spoiler alert, is that this personal financial counselor job is actually a pretty good job, and being a regional supervisor or a regional manager, I think, is also a really good job. It's usually home-based, and I don't see a lot of people quitting that job. So if you're good at the role, if you have military experience or prior service, if you build strong relationships with installation leadership and demonstrate impact, you're more competitive when supervisor positions open up. But you need to go into this career with realistic expectations. You might be a frontline PFC making $50,000 to $75,000 a year for the next 3, 5, 10 years, maybe your entire career. So who is this career actually for? It's for people who want meaningful work serving the military community. It's for people who want stability and predictability without the pressure of sales or business development. It's for people who value the mission over maximizing income, because you're probably not going to get rich doing this compared to some other careers. But you will make a real difference in people's lives. You'll help a young enlisted member avoid predatory car loans. You'll help a family get out of debt. You'll help someone understand their retirement benefits. That's the reward. In my next video, I'll be covering the pros and cons of this job from my personal experience, the things I love about it and the things that drive me crazy. So I hope this gave you a realistic picture of the compensation and career path. But the learning doesn't stop here. Check out some of my other videos for more deep dives into the PFC role. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.